Welcome to Slate Against the Machine, a podcast that is not officially sponsored by UFCW 175 or UFCW 633 in Toronto, but we will be talking a lot about unions and labor on this episode. We aim to pull back the curtain on the film industry, and today we will be introducing ourselves and then talking about certain administrative processes. Let's start with you, boss man.
Boss man, je m'appelle Shant. Je suis le président de Fae Pictures.
Shant, when the revolution comes, being French won't save you.
I'll be leading the revolution, man. It'll be the French Revolution. It's me and Macron and his wife. Sorry, bad joke.
Oh boy.
Yes, I'm the president of Fae Pictures. Melissa, who are you? You are new to the team.
Hello. I'm not new to the team in full, but
new to
you're
the
new to the podcast.
Yep. Yes. Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm not going to speak French. I am the coordinator at Fae Pictures. I've been with the team since late 2022, and I've just went from admin assistant to coordinator. And I'm excited.
So, Melissa, do you think you get paid fairly for the work you do?
I can't say that.
You do?
Would it be helpful if you unionized?
What if you talked to the bust of Vladimir Lenin? What if I just turned away and you told old Vladdy boy?
Every time I speak to Abdul, he does this.
I also have Ho Chi Minh here, which someone sent me from Vietnam. Would that be easier?
No, somehow it wasn't me who sent that to you. I just got back from Vietnam.
No, it couldn't be Leonard.
We'll talk about your role in this business after, Melissa. But let's look at the man who just got back from the land of hopes and dreams, Leonard Chan.
Hello, je m'appelle Leonard Chan. And 而家我想講中文，因為我哋中國嘢係個 future 係中國。
I don't know what that means, but I want to.
Abdul. It means he's starting the revolution. I mean, he's the one who's starting the revolution.
Yeah, it's of a cultural nature. We're gonna do a revolution of a cultural nature. But yes, my name is Leonard. I am a director of development at Fae Pictures. Abdul is my boss, so I'm here under duress.
Yes, I mean, Leonard, I'm the kind of boss who will tell you should absolutely file a petition to unionize. The problem is that you and I are technically both contract workers, which means we don't have that legal right. But Melissa, on the other hand, is on payroll, and she does.
It's just me.
You can unionize as a shop of one. That's all I'm saying.
And the thing is this, like,
I'm also
you are
on payroll,
so good at organizing.
But
Chance and I can unionize together.
I'm on payroll. Melissa's on payroll. So if there's a vote to unionize, it's split at 50-50.
You own the fucking company. You cannot unionize it. You are a manager.
You're capital. You are not labor. You are capital.
Yeah.
With a capital C.
Yes, it's Melissa surplus value that you are sucking out into your bank account. So today we're going to talk about the
bank account.
Yes, my massive bank account. That's why we started a podcast, because of my massive bank account.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, look, these days podcasts aren't cheap.
What brought us in. And for the third attempt, today we are going to talk about the most undervalued, underpaid, and desperately in need of unionizing part of this business, administrative work. That is one of the reasons we brought Melissa on the call. I just want everyone to know we had to fight to have Melissa here. And Melissa, these are billable hours. Remember that.
They're going on my timesheet.
Good. Yeah, like what we're going to talk about is sort of pre-production, post-production, paperwork, admin stuff you need to know, all of that. And I think even more abstractly, the sort of role of admin in this business is very different than a lot of industries where there's very little mobility for administrative people in other sort of lines of work, right? If you work as a receptionist, you're probably never going to be the CEO because society hates you and devalues your labor and a bunch of other reasons. However, in the film industry, assistants administrative people a lot of times actually end up being promoted to much higher level jobs. There's a lot, maybe less so today, but like people who are someone's assistant one day might be a junior executive the next and then work their way up to like a head of a department and things like that. Now, Melissa, why do you think that is?
I think mainly from what I've seen in the years I've been at Fae is that admin people wear a lot of hats, and you don't really necessarily think as like you're like an administrative assistant, you're a coordinator, like you don't really think you're going to be doing much rather than just like answering an email and scheduling a meeting. But there's a lot that go into not even just like a production company, but also like when you're doing a shoot, when you're doing a film, that not a lot of people think about. When I started, I didn't think that I was going to do really much except for like maybe assisting with scheduling or, just dealing with, like development rooms and such and just like coordinating schedules. On a day-to-day, I handle part of the finance. I handle part of the coordinating within the company, coordinating on set. I help with multiple things. And I think over the years, I've realized it's good in the sense that it kind of broadens like the spectrum of like what you can go into. But it also, as you've said, there's a lot to do and not a lot of, I don't think you get compensated as much as you should.
Shant. It's interesting because like a lot of people will say that they wear a lot of hats. The thing is with Melissa and with admin work, like it is juggling. Like no matter the size of production, like admins have to have a knowledge of every part of a production.
That's right.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And like we can probably I know we want to talk about like pre-production, the actual production process. But like when we're out of a production cycle, like what does like Shant, you and Melissa's like day to day look like when we're not actively preparing a shoot?
I mean, there's so much administrative work during production. I think Melissa can attest to this. I imagine Melissa, your workload sort of accelerates by 10 basically when we're in production. But when we're not in production, we're just sort of doing our day-to-day admin, and a lot of that work is essentially the operations of the company. So that's a lot of development, that's a lot of this writer got hired and got hired to write this script, and so we're paying them and remitting their fringes to the Writers Guild of Canada because we are a union-friendly production company, no matter how much Abdul thinks we're not. We work with the guilds, we work with the unions, and we love our cats, such as Abdul and Leonard.
We do love our cats.
We love our cats.
You don't know what a union is. You have no thoughts.
My cats have unionized already, actually.
Smooth brain.
Exactly.
Yeah, brain cell.
But yes, we pay health insurance, we pay retirement benefits for all our mostly writers that we're paying during our off seasons when we're not in production, and then projects that are in distribution. Also, lots of money has to get paid out. Then also, I'm traveling, going to different delegations around the world to set up projects and co-productions and sell projects. So Melissa and our admin team sort of help facilitate getting those meetings on the books, making that all happen, making sure everyone shows up on time, making sure the Zoom link works, making sure they have my phone number, making sure I have their phone number, making sure the meeting isn't too far from my hotel, making sure when I land in London or Paris or Mumbai or wherever that I have some time to sit down and relax before I have my meetings, and I can it's all.
Do you feel like you have a healthy work-life balance, if especially when Shant's traveling?
Yes, I would say, but it is something that I know that it seems easy just to be like, oh, like you're booking these meetings, but when you have a boss who goes from London to India to Germany to everywhere, and then he does it within 3 weeks span, you can imagine how much coordinating that has to take, how many time zones you have to think about. where is he staying here? Does he have like 2 days of travel here? And then there's another like festival. Like, what is he doing? And so, and especially if he's in places like India or Singapore, when you go to bed while you're scheduling those meetings, they answer you throughout the night. So when you wake up, that's their evening. And you now have to be like, oh my God, I have to schedule 5 meetings for the next day. And it's already the next day there. What do I do? So it's I wouldn't say it's hard, because it's really not hard work to schedule, but it's tedious, and you have to like make sure that everything is correct, because the minute that I don't put a phone number into Shant's calendar invite, he's like, how am I connecting with this person? I can't connect to them over email. They're not going to message me that way. So it's just this, you have to think ahead every single time, do even the tiniest of scheduling, which is really important to do.
Would you say that your especially, you know, when you're in production and everything is busy and you're scheduling stuff, would you say it's helped by having to sit down to do podcasts?
Well,
we're literally in pre-production for a movie shooting in South Africa right now with like, so you're not sleeping tonight is basically.
Oh no, I will.
And hence, union.
Well, this is the give and take. Think about, but it's all good. Really, the podcast is fun. I'm excited to be here.
I mean,
this might be my only episode. Who knows?
We're glad to. No, this is not your only episode. You have a lot more to add, but we're glad to have you, Melissa. And yeah,
it's unfortunate that like the other thing about the film industry, and we'll talk about sort of development and production as well, is that a lot of the most labor-intensive jobs in this business are also the ones that are paid the least. Like there are the PAs who wear many hats, and many of them more ruthless about how much they work if they're actually good at their jobs. And then like there's also like script coordinators and writers' rooms who, like, it's the most thankless job. You work as much as the showrunner does, just in a completely different way. And stuff like that, and like also like you're the most disposable and paid the least, right? Like it's highly unfortunate. But everyone wants a good script coordinator, but they don't want to promote them because they're like, well, fuck, we won't find a new script coordinator, right? Like who's as good as you? So that's why you don't deserve to move up in the world. Which I've seen on a couple of shows. And then there's the work that Melissa does, right? Which is just, you're the first point of contact for like anyone we meet. You're the first point of contact for like presenting a public face to the company, to people we want to work with. And also like I'm sure there's a lot of times where you have to like negotiate people's egos, people's time zones, people's like personalities, and understanding like, okay, this person's going to give me short replies, but it's not because they're angry, or hey, this person is giving me short replies and it's because they're pissed off at us. They're not going to make your life easy or any of our lives easy, right?
There is a sense of imposter syndrome also that kind of comes with that I've realized over the years, because especially just like my kind of generation, it's like we always want to do our best and we want to make sure that, you know, everybody's happy in the company, everybody that we're speaking to over email is happy with what we're giving them. And it is one of those things where I have to understand that like certain people's email etiquette will be different from mine, and it's not that they're angry, like they're putting like periods in front of every, or like after every sentence, they're not angry. It's just how their cadence is. But you know, you kind of sit there being like, oh, and I've found myself so many times being like, am I doing the right thing by emailing this person this? Am I, you know, bothering someone too much for scheduling something? Am I bothering someone too much to be like, hey, just checking back on this payment, just checking back on this? Like, am I doing enough or am I doing too much? And I think that's something that I have to take into account. I've definitely gotten better with it over time, but it is something that I think myself and like a lot of people probably doing an admin role or even just in the film industry in itself probably deal with a lot and like think about a lot. And it's like, as long as you're kind of doing something that feels good to you, that you know, you're like, I'm doing this and I feel good about it. I feel good about this many times scheduling this, or this many times, you know, bugging someone. That's all really you can think about. In the end of the day, you're your own person type of thing, and you try your best. You're happy and like but you're also firm with your emails, you know?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of those from you.
You have to point out that one time, Melissa was just trying to get information about Abdul's availability.
Oh, no.
And Abdul's response was, room.
I G-chatted Abdul, and I was just like, hey, just checking if you're coming to the company meeting. We have a company meeting every Mondays. And it's really my job to be like, okay, who's coming? Because if, let's say, we all go in at 2 and Shant's like, where is everybody, Melissa? And I'm like, I don't know. So I was like, Abdul, like, are you coming? And I knew he was in a writer's room, and I knew he was stressed. And this is, again, where everybody
don't defend me. I deserve this.
I need to defend you because I knew you were stressed. And you did tell me 2 weeks ago, like 2 weeks prior to that you were going to be in a room. But I didn't know when that room was happening. It slipped my mind. So when you just answered room, I was like, got it. And I was like, it's okay. Like,
it was,
know.
So my wife used to be an admin, and when I told her that story, that was like the thing that gave her pause about us getting married. She was like, you just replied with room? I'm like, I meant the night before, and I got distracted by the room. And she's like, you know, like how a fucking asshole that makes you.
I almost wrecked your wedding. I'm so sorry.
Of all the things, she's like, you treat admins like that? I'm like, no, I don't. She's like, you used to work at a union. I'm like, no, I know. I'm sorry. So, like, when we are in pre-production, Melissa, you've been through this ringer with us a whole bunch, right? Like, what kind of, like, administrative work or work do you do to, like, set up the pre-production? What kind of paperwork do you launch? Like, what are some of the things that, like, just basic you would have to know if you're, like, graduating from, like, student film to, like, an actual production?
Well, that depends, because if it's one of those things where if you guys have, like, a small crew, something that, like, for Fae, for example, we usually hire a lot of people, like a line producer, people to do this, but it's usually dealing with, you know, deal memos for crew, for locations, make sure you have your location agreements in place, you know, for accounting, make sure you have, like, your accounting policies and your expense reimbursement spreadsheets, petty cash spreadsheets, just all those things ready to go so that when you're in production, that paperwork is already either dealt with or it's at the ready to, like, send to those people that need them, type of thing. When we just got out of production on something in February and March, like early March, and Lisa, our VP of Finance, and I were together working through, on our side at least, the accounting policy and, like, what the accounting, or, like, what the actual production, like, how we deal with all the AP. We thought about that 2 months in advance.
What is AP? What does that stand for?
Oh, AP is accounts payable. So that means any invoices from crew, any location payments, any
art department,
credit card payments, art department, petty cash. That's all in the AP. And when you deal with AP, especially at a larger scale, when it comes to, like, not, because the way that Fae does it is usually, like, we have our regular AP of just the company. That's a lot more slower because we'll get, like, invoices every now and then for either said writer's room. A writer came in and they gave us our services. They wrote us a pilot script. We paid that. Or, you know, Shant's doing a mentorship, something with whatever company, and they invoice us or we invoice them for their time. That's quite slow. So really that's just like a weekly process. But for film, when you're in film and you're doing, like, a production, imagine that, but, like, times 10. So you kind of need this very, like, strict, tight process. And Lisa, our VP of Finance, and I, we were figuring out that process of, like, okay, I work these many days for Fae. This day, I'm looking over all the invoices. This day, I'm getting them ready and I'm sending them over for approval. And then this day, I'm paying them out. And that's what we were doing 2 months in advance and still tweaking it until pretty much, like, 3 weeks before production. So there's a lot to think about. that.
And like it is true that before we had Lisa, like our financial management was a goddamn mess. Like it is so important, like because then you get audited after the fact and stuff, and then like you also have to be responsive to crises, right? Like let's say you bring on an associate producer as a favor to your production because he needs a job and he offers your entire crew overtime on a short film that you cannot afford, and stuff like that. That all then goes through accounts payable. You're probably the first point of contact for that, right? Stuff like that.
Oh, yes. Yes. We've been through many of people are like, where's my payment? And I'm like, I'm so sorry for the delay. It is getting processed. And also there's like a lot of steps to AP too that like I don't think I could have ever imagined it like 3 years ago, because I remember when we were doing, we've tightened up our processes a lot over the years, but when we were doing Queen Tut, for example, it was very much like, here's an invoice, we pay it instantly and it's there. But now we had to understand that there has to be a process of like, who's approving what, how is it getting submitted, how is it getting paid? And that's the other big thing that I realized with this production, where it's like you kind of need those processes in place. Otherwise, you are just going to pay things like willy-nilly, and then you come as an audit and it's like, where's all the paperwork? How did this get papered?
Yeah, like there are a couple of words you're going to hear a lot as you like work through the industry as a creative. AP is one, BA is another, that's business affairs. Like your contracts will be held up in business affairs forever. And then there's also chain of title, which is not an actual chain. Like it's not like what the Ottomans put in front of, or what the Byzantines put in front of Constantinople's harbor. It is like but it is a term that is the most autistic thing I could have said.
I didn't want to say.
They put a really big
dude.
chain to stop the ships, right? Like which Iran is now doing in the Strait of Hormuz. But like, yeah, like chain of title is just one of those things you're going to hear a lot. What is it?
A chain of title is existential to a production. If you do not have it, you're not legally allowed to make the show that you're making. And chain of title essentially is a series of documents that have verified and validated that the production company that is making this production is legally entitled to make this production. What a chain of title will include is, first and foremost, where did the rights originate? Where did the story originate? Was it a book? Was it a short story? Was it a newspaper article? Was it a did it come from divine inspiration from Abdul Malik or Leonard Chan? And if so, who then acquired those rights and by what mechanism? So usually most people will acquire rights by way of what's called an option agreement during development, which means you pay a little bit up front.
Refer to our episode on development for further details. Come on,
Exactly.
Shant, you cross promote.
Cross promote. Go to faepictures.com/development podcast to get that episode. Make it sort of less morose, but basically the rights situate with Abdul had divine inspiration, came up with an idea. I went to him, I said, here, I'll give you $1 and I promise to give you $10 when we make the movie. You say, okay, great. That sounds good to me. That sounds like a good deal.
I would say talk to my agent or go get fucked for that amount. But yes.
But essentially I'm paying a small nominal amount up front with the idea that I'll pay a bigger amount later when we start production. And usually the difference between an option price and a purchase price is about 10 to 1, basically. The purchase price is 10 times the size an option price would be. But it gives me the rights for a certain period of time, 18 months, 19 months, 20 months, 24 months, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years to develop the project. Then I develop it. Then I go get some development financing. The development financing says, well, if you go into production, you have to pay this money back. Okay, so you abide by that. You keep going. You keep developing. Hey, I say, Abdul, go get fucked. I'm going to hire Leonard, and I'm going to hire Leonard to write the script, or I'm going to hire Leonard to do a rewrite, and I hire Leonard to do
$350.
We're gonna pay him $350, and he's gonna do rewrite 2, 3, 4, and then Melissa's gonna do a polish, and then in all of that, when I hired Leonard to do some rewrites, when I hired Melissa to do some rewrites, every contract that I have with each of them has to ensure that ultimately the rights reside with me. Because once I enter into production, I have to sort of tie up all of that chain of title between Abdul and Leonard and Melissa and say, okay, that's my chain that says I'm allowed to go to production with this script without, basically the chain of title being broken. So for example, let's say Abdul wrote draft 1, Leonard wrote draft 2, and Melissa wrote draft 3. I got an agreement from Melissa. I got an agreement from Abdul. I gave an agreement to Leonard. Maybe I gave him an agreement. Maybe I forgot to give him an agreement. And Leonard decides, Shant, you can go get fucked and I won't sign your contract. I'm screwed. If I don't have Leonard's contract, because if Melissa worked on Leonard's script to do a polish or to do a rewrite, if that work that Leonard created I don't have the rights to that, then my chain of title is broken. Does that mean that Leonard can go make the movie? No. But it means my chain of title is broken. It means I don't technically have the legal right to make this production. And maybe I'd say, I don't care. Maybe I'm someone who steals real estate signs and puts them on set and decide I don't really need a chain of title because I'll just go make my thing regardless without even needing any of the rights to make it happen. Then you get screwed because once you make the product, you can't monetize it. You can't go to a distributor. You can't sell it. You can't go to Netflix and sell it. Because while you are willing to accept that risk, nobody else is willing to accept that risk. Netflix, CBC, Warner Brothers, whoever, they're not willing to accept the risk that someone may come around and sue and say, listen, I wrote this. Here's the proof that I wrote this, and here's the proof that I did not assign my rights to the producer to make this happen. And suddenly, you enter yourself into a lawsuit, and Warner Brothers or Netflix or CBC leave themselves up for liabilities that they do not want to incur. Everyone's trying to save their money. So that's sort of where chain of title becomes super important to make sure you actually make something that you can actually make money on. Otherwise, you're just making art for yourself, essentially.
Okay, so then you have chain of title. You've sent out crew agreements, which I don't think we need to talk about a lot. Like every crew needs to sign an agreement that dictates their work, that dictates what they do, their hours.
This also, so just so you know, this also forms part of chain of title. It's not part of the like number one chain, but it actually does form the part of the basis for which a lawyer will say, this production has proceeded legally and effectively. So each crew agreement has to include an assignment of rights that says, I'm the production designer, and I'm the cinematographer, and I decided that the bicycle goes on the right side of the shot, and this goes on the left side of the shot. And I made all these creative decisions. But I did not sign away my rights to say that you're allowed to use my creative work. Whether you're a production designer, costume designer, a PA, everyone has to assign all their rights and say, whatever the work I do on this set, it belongs to the producer, because ultimately the producer has to hold those rights to actually go monetize it.
And like best practice, you do not go to production until all crew agreements are signed. For exactly this reason, because someone does a day of work, they walk off, they don't sign their agreement. I mean, like, they're not going to win that in a legal sense, but they're going to make your life very hard if they want to, right? And like, no one wants to. I mean, they would really have to hate you. You know what I mean? They would really have to have like some sort of vendetta against you. But like, if they're not doing that, then yeah, like it's still best practices to do this. Let's quickly pivot to my favorite part of this process, and one of the reasons all these rules exist. Unions. Unions are a key backbone of the filmmaking process. Some would say the most important part. They, they uphold standard value and labor rights for every single crew member who is unionized. And we don't scab in this house. So, Melissa, if Shant ever pays you to rewrite a script that was written under a WGC contract, just say no, and then talk to me. So, yeah.
Abdul, what's your background with unions?
I worked for unions for basically a decade. I was a labor bureaucrat, so to speak, highly involved. And I'm also unionized under the WGA, soon to be, or WGC, soon to be WGA, in a few weeks. And I'm also a delegate for WGC National Forum for 2 cycles now. So I know a thing or two about this world. Sometimes it bites me in the ass because I'm not nice to bad bosses, but we talk about union, non-union sets a lot, right? I'll preface this by saying unions in the film industry are actually quite hard to get into. From a writer's perspective, you need to have a certain number of hours on certain shows. You need to have certain guild rooms and contracts for produced work. For IATSE, I believe it's a point system based on how many shows you've been on. Stuff they're actually difficult to get into by design. However, what you do when you hire a union set is these people are ostensibly the best of the best, right? They are people who work efficiently, who work quickly, who work for a certain kind of scale. They get paid obviously a lot more than a non-union worker, but there is an expectation of quid pro quo that they are going to do their jobs very well and very efficiently. I can say, as far as writers' rooms go, that is the process. We are all very good. But yeah, what is a lot? What are those determinations in a union?
Can I just poke holes on that, please?
Sure, Sean. Let's get into it, motherfucker.
So
where's Vlad?
So just because you, so Leonard, are you a member of any unions?
I'm a member of ACTRA.
But are you a member of the Writers Guild?
I am not at present, no.
You are not a member of the Writers Guild. Are you talented?
Am I talented? I mean, that's subjective. I would like to think I am.
I would agree with that sentiment. I would agree that you are talented, and you've made a decision. We'll get to that decision in a minute. But just because you've joined a union does not necessarily mean you're the right person for every job. And
no, of course not. No one's saying that's the case, because right. I as a union writer would probably not apply to most half-hour comedy rooms, right? I know
it's partially having to do with what's your specialty, what are you good at, what are you not good at, are you good at doing procedurals, are you good at writing feature films, are you good at all these kind of different things. Also, Leonard, it comes down to
Leonard also has a career and investment portfolio that ensures he gets healthcare without needing to rely on the AFBS. You know what I mean? Leonard, would you say that if you did not have those things, the appeal of a union would probably be higher for you?
Well, I was getting my insurance through my wife, so she was truly a friend with benefits. It was wonderful. That being said, the AFBS, you have to work quite a bit to get good insurance out of them. I also do stand-up comedy as a side hustle, and then part of what I was doing with them is I worked for it was called CASC, which is the Canadian Association of Stand-up Comedy, which is not a union because you can't unionize comedians because they're impossible. But it was more like an advocacy group, and we did actually speak with the AFBS, and we got insurance available for working comedians if they wanted to opt in. So. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say insurance is would be my my reason to join the WGC.
Yes. Okay. So, but my point being that it's not just the ability. Each individual, whether they're unionized or not unionized, has a certain ability and talent and skill that is assessed on a subjective basis by each and every employer. But also, there's a working style. There's a working relationship. There's an ability to work professionally, and I've worked with people who are not members of unions who work more professionally than people who are members of unions, and vice versa. It's so one does not necessitate But there are qualifications and there are regulations and requirements. So, for example, if you're with IATSE, you have to go through certain health and safety, certain workplace, you have registrations and you're certified to work with certain equipment and all that stuff. That's certainly all there, and it's there to protect the production. It's there to protect the worker. All totally respectable. But ultimately, at the end of the day, just because you're a member of the union does not mean every job that is available is suddenly you are effectively qualified for that job.
No, of course not. And that's why we work in a creative industry, because those things are subjective by nature, right? But like, for example, Leonard, as a non-union person, you've definitely benefited from union contracts, right?
Oh, for
It's
sure.
set strong minimums for you as a writer. Unions dictate a lot of, let's say you make a film. Let's say you call it and you decide to not to hire a mix of union, non-union, and like you completely mess up your paperwork and you bungle everything and all that stuff, right? Like the unions can then dictate that you should not be worked with again as a producer of the short film. To basically make sure that bad behavior is not rewarded, right? And that means that anyone who wants to get into the union, anyone who is part of the union, any of like what you would call like higher qualified, whether they're union or not, right? Probably knows just by the nature of a do not work order to not work with you, right?
Yeah.
And things like that.
Unions are good. I mean, unions have helped me for sure. Like not, I haven't worked with the WGC directly, but with ACTRA for sure. Like my very first time on set ever, I was on the set of Man Seeking Woman, and
Great show.
Great show. It was a wedding scene where God literally attended. God, played by Richard Kind, character actor Richard Kind. I was told that he was going to come by, and like I was just an extra, like just playing. Just a member of an audience a guest at a wedding. And then Richard Kind, they're like, he's going to come by. He's going to fake a punch at you. You just have to go, and whatever, right? But don't say anything because that's, for actors. And anyways, he came by, first take, that's fine. That's what he did. Second take, he slaps me. And we're like, and it was like loud and, and he just kept doing it because it was funny. And I kind of reacted going like, oh my God, I was touched by God. And it was like this whole thing, right? And the director like that. So they kept doing it. And then afterwards, people were like, you got slapped like 7 times. I was like my first day on set. And I was just like, yeah, I was always told it was harder for minorities in Hollywood. And I just got slapped around by an old white man for minimum wage. And so they were like, you got to go tell the union. So I went, I told ACTRA, they looked at the dailies and they're like, yeah, we're going to get you an upgrade. So like I went from making what would have been $160 a day for 2 days, 320 to making like 3,500 because I got upgraded to like SSE. And I was like, and then I joined the union as an apprentice right away. And I got to make a bunch of money to keep myself afloat because that was just when I left being an engineer and I was transitioning to art, and I was just like, I have a mortgage still, though.
And what does SSE stand for?
Oh, special skills or something.
Special skill, extra,
something like that,
or special stuff.
Yeah. So unions have been very good at they are very good at like protecting you if you need somebody to advocate on your behalf.
Yeah, because the idea is that they are it's a mob, right? Mm-hmm. They've put together a mob. It's literally the mob. So it's like it's one person who's emailing you being like, hi, producer, I saw in the dailies that Leonard got slapped. We'd like for him to get upgraded, please. But it's not just one.
Nice production there. It would be a shame if something happened to it.
It's not just one person emailing you. It's one person with the backing of a membership of 10,000 people. It's that mob that's behind them, that stands behind them.
Shant, it's literally people who have earned dignity through their blood, sweat, and tears, and are not willing to give the bosses an inch. I will say, most unions are willing to play ball. They're quite reasonable. The only, the caveat I'd add to that is don't fuck with Teamsters. I literally saw a Teamster force, a showrunner kept parking in their spot, and would keep sending like PAs to move their car when they complained. And finally, the Teamster was the guy in the truck on set was like, no, you're going to move your car today. And you could just see that person, like the life flood out of their eyes, like that someone told them what to do, like their ego was battered for the whole fucking day. And they never did again, you know what I mean? But it was like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, like these are just old dudes who are like coming out of some other film union who can no longer do the backbreaking work, and they just sit in the truck and they're just like, yep, like we do our job, and do not like
fuck with us.
Yeah,
No,
do not fuck with us as slightest.
Don't fuck with the Teamsters because they will ruin your lives if you get on their bad side.
And if you're an indie producer who obviously can't afford to hire a union, I think it is always like important to look at like what the union guidelines for set are, what the pay scales are. Like you should be trying to get into a world where you can actually do union productions and build union shows and things like that. And you need to like start that paperwork very early with unions and all that. But you should try to still abide by those guidelines in a production environment, even if you're like just starting out and you're running a non-union set. It does actually open doors to a whole world of like talent and crew if you go union. And the idea is you need to be sustainable enough to afford what that means, because once you sign the IPA, you can't unsign the IPA. Now, Melissa, would you like to tell us what the IPA is?
The IPA is standard for.
It is hot.
India Pale Ale, right?
Explain it then.
It's what Melissa drinks every day after work to keep going.
Are you talking about the actual IPA? Is that what you're referring
or just
to?
An IPA in general?
It's an independent production agreement. That's what it is, as Shant pointed out in the chat.
But you knew.
Okay,
I did know.
So Melissa, for you, on your side of things, what's your day-to-day engagement with the unions, and how do you work with them?
Oh, usually what I do, I will say I don't really speak in my job. I don't really speak much to the unions. The main thing that I really do is for the WGC, I do the remittances. So I make sure that, hey, is our production, does it have a VRA, which is I forget what it's called.
It's the voluntary recognition agreement. It's when the production decides to volunteer, or rather voluntold to sign this thing. Otherwise, you can't hire our members. So we volunteer to sign on and say, oh, we volunteer to recognize that the independent production agreement is the dominant agreement that claims jurisdiction over the entire production or the entire company, essentially. Mm-hmm. So that voluntary recognition agreement is a voluntary decision that the production company makes to volunteer themselves to be part of this cabal.
Yes. Well, I usually
this Shant is doing tropes about the fucking unions now.
Well, I usually make sure that the WGC has that for whatever production we're doing in development, whether it's be a series or a feature. And then once that's signed and they have like a file for us for that production, I then remit the WGC remittances, which is all the dues and all the contributions and everything for the writers that they get by being in the WGC and making sure that they get paid on time.
I'll mention that there is actually a cabal in the film industry, and it's called the PGA, or in Canada, the CMPA, which is the Producers Association. Yeah, you see how angry my cat got when I said CMPA? It's a sign. She knows. What don't you know?
Well, actually, the PGA and the CMPA are not equivalent, because the PGA is a producers guild. It's actually technically representing producers as not necessarily laborers, but as managers. It's sort of a guild for...
Yeah, it's a bosses union, like a fake union they set up to protect their greedy little interests. Whereas, like,
because well, let me just explain. In the U.S. studio system, the studios own the productions. The producers do not own the productions. The producers are, in effect, workers or representatives of the studios on productions. In Canada, however, the producers are their own studios essentially, so they do own their productions. We're able to be our own sort of mini studios because we have the ability to access bank loans here that finance basically, the entirety of the production alongside all of our contracts, basically. So
yeah, you control the levers of capital, Shant. You control the levers and you hostage out that money so that people can make a living.
And the difference is that the Producers Guild represents people, individual producers, and the CMPA is an association that represents all Canadian independent production companies. So the equivalent would essentially be the AMPTP, which negotiates all the labor agreements with like WGA, DGA, like the SAG, all of the strikes that happened in 2023, that was because of the AMPTP. And so CMPA is the equivalent, but the AMPTP represents the studios, whereas the CMPA represents small, independent Canadian production companies.
Small, and just a wee little Shaftesbury, you know what I mean? Like, come on, Shant. Like there are $100 million companies that have negotiating power on behalf of CMPA. You cannot tell me that any of the big four, big five are small, even by American standards. But let's move off of Shant's wretched exploitation of the common man moment and go very quickly to cast and crew grids. Okay, so you've successfully conned these workers into giving you their surplus labor. Now you have to put them on a grid. You have to number them like chattel. What is the cast and crew grid?
Did you get IBM to help? I hear they're very useful in these endeavors.
Oh my god. Yes, this is actually part of. So Melissa and I can sort of speak to this, but basically, while yes, Abdul, we don't number people, but we do sometimes categorize them and put them on a grid and map them out.
There's a saying in the film industry that certain actors number one on the call sheet.
That's
it is
right.
like a feature, not a bug.
Yes, so we number cast and we number crew as a way to identify how many cast and how many crew do we have. So we number them, and then also to identify, okay, hey, number 2 needs to get paid, number 3 needs to get paid, because if you have big crew, big cast, like, using names and remembering names is not necessarily the easiest way, and sometimes you just need to like systemically, collect a whole bunch of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and run payroll on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 basically. So basically we use these grids, mapping out the cast and the crew into these grids with their phone numbers and email addresses and agency contacts, so that once payroll time comes, Melissa, what do we use these crew grids to then do?
Make payment and make sure that everybody gets paid. And it's also something to note too, when I look at the cast and crew grids, because what we usually do is once we pay something, we have to code it to a budget, and that's usually the Telefilm Standard production budget. So for those that are either just getting out of film school or kind of still more emerging, the Telefilm Standard production budget is what usually everybody uses for features and shows. And sometimes, especially when you're new to a budget with all these different numbers and you're like, what's 2205? What's 1210? It's easier to kind of see like, oh, okay, this person has this number on the crew grid and this is their corresponding budget code. And so it helped me over the years of trying to like understand the Telefilm Standard production budget with that. Like it helped me to really understand, being like, oh, okay, I paid this person this much money and this is their budget code and this is what they were on the crew grid.
And coding helps identify, because ultimately in Canada, for the most part, our tax credit system is a labor-based tax credit system. So being able to identify people by their budget code helps Telefilm helps all the tax credit regimes, helps the CRA, the revenue agency, the tax authorities basically say, okay, if you paid 65-35, this much money, then this is how much you get in tax credits because you paid them this much money. So it ultimately, it's all a value chain that starts from the labor and the work and the worker and the people, the creative ideas, through to their contract, through to their payroll, through their invoices or timesheets, through to accounts payable, the system at which that they claim their work hours, through to the cost report, and through that cost report, the tax credits. And that's how a producer makes a production.
And so with that, I think we're going to talk about more of this in a part 2 because pre-production is insane. And there's so much to cover. But before we do that, let's ask Melissa, our hardworking admin whose voice has been silenced, what she's been watching this week.
Abdul has told me to say The Grapes of Wrath.
Don't put it on.
That's Melissa, check your text. I'm like, what are you talking about?
What is The Grapes of Wrath? And also, have you actually seen The Grapes of Wrath?
No, I've actually never seen The Grapes of Wrath.
It's about worker exploitation in the Dust Bowl. I told Melissa to say that and then also say because it's relatable.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's Silkwood, right? You've been watching Silkwood?
Yeah. What are you actually watching, Melissa? What do you do when you have 10 minutes a day when Shant's not bugging you for meetings in Turkey?
Cry. I'm kidding. I don't cry. I do not cry. No, actually, I've been on an A24 kick because the drama is coming out. Excited for. So I've been I recently watched Eternity. I watched The Moment. I rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then in terms of shows, I've been really keeping up with Abbott Elementary. I started to rewatch Dairy Girls. I'm kind of just trying to find the feel-good moment, the comedy in this life that we have.
Yeah, and there's a lot of comedy in working with producers who think that you are a mob, isn't there? One day, Shant. You're
not a mob, you're a unionist.
Yeah, you'll be one day we will hang you by your own petard, you'll see. It'll be like Les Miserables, but less cool.
Abdul, do you want to be the one who applies for the bank loan and has the bank, knock down your door when you don't come to pay your interest?
So I take a strong anti-AI stance for the most part, but I feel like in future, maybe that's
AI producers. You think the producers will be replaced by AI?
I could think of at least 2 producers I know, not you, who could easily be replaced by AI with less catastrophic outcomes. Anyway, we'll meet you for us it'll be 5 minutes. For you, it'll be a whole week. I hope you're sitting on the edge of your toilet with bated breath, squeezing one out until you get the next episode. Let's go.
Which is really a perfect metaphor for film.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. Bye.